of Inspiration with Mandla Mkhwebane on Zoe Live Radio. The abundant life experience.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Moments of Inspiration with Mandla Mkhwebane. Well, today we've got it's not even a surprise because you can see on your screens. We are very privileged today to have one of the most humble, one of the most down to earth and yet very talented individual on our screens, and her name of course is Ayanda Boroto. Welcome, Ayanda, to Moments of Inspiration.
Thank you, Mandla. It's been a journey, hey? We're now doing Moments of Inspiration. We met a couple of years ago through Average Lane, and the relationship has kind of progressed and developed over time. So well done for this platform as well.
Awesome. No, thank you for blessing it with your presence, really, because we like to speak to individuals from different, worlds and from different, industries. And today I just thought, let's talk about the entertainment industry, and it's a viable career option. It's a viable, a lot of young people want to get into the entertainment industry, and I think it's time that we speak about it and lay out, the facts out there. So thank you. But before we go on, I think it's important for you, I don't know who doesn't know you, but maybe for those people who might not have met you or might not have seen you or have enjoyed, your work, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. But I don't want it to be like the usual, things that we see. I want to get behind the curtain a little bit, where you went to school, how did you grow up, where did you grow up? I think it will be interesting for me and for everyone else as well.
Certainly. So you might be wrong. I think there are quite a number of people who don't know me. I never assume that everybody knows who I am.
Of course,
But Ayanda Boroto, I suppose, best known for the role of Matlamino Nesibaya. I've had an extensive acting career. It started in 2007. Well, maybe not even started in 2007. I think it took off in 2007. But I came to Johannesburg. I'm a KZN born girl. I came to Johannesburg in 1998, soon after I finished my matric. I came here in pursuit of a career in advertising and marketing. So I went to the AAA School of Advertising. But in my pursuit of an education, I then pursued acting as well. So that's how the acting thing started. So born and bred in KZN, I'm born to Ulungile Mkhwebane, was her maiden surname being Mazungu. So I'm born of a Mazungu and a Ubab Mkhwebane, Njabulu Mkhwebane. My father passed away when I was 11. My mother is still alive. She's a retired social worker. A lot of people don't know that I'm a twin, but I have a twin brother, Usandile, and I have a younger brother. Yeah, I have a younger brother, Utabani. So Nguma Fungase, the first born daughter in the family, which carries with it a lot of responsibility. So I grew up in a loving home, challenges like any other Black family in the township would have. My mother's side of the family is very politically inclined. So I grew up around a lot of uncles who were in exile and aunts who were in exile, and then uncles were involved with MK. They have a long-standing political history, which probably is why I'm so outspoken about some of the social ills that we see today. I think it was part of that grooming. I remember Umalumu Umo would, when he was in the US and come to visit in SA, he would lock us up in a room and make us draw the ANC flag. And the MK flag. And I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what that was about. But it was part of his indoctrination about, some of the ills that, or some whatever that landscape, the political landscape was at the time, it was part of his teaching. Grew up with, grew up with parents who, I think it's from what I saw, was a loving home. Like I said, my dad passed away when I was 11. Mom, being a social worker, raised us then as a single parent. I started experiencing multiracial schools around standard 2, standard 1. What is standard 1? Grade 3.
Grade 3. I always get lost here because I also did standards. It's grade 3. And then, introduced into a world that I wasn't really familiar with. I stayed in the township, kind of lived a dual life where you're a child, a black child growing in the township, but have access to a better education. And then I came to Joburg. Initially, I wanted to be a lawyer, right? I then changed my mind once I was introduced to advertising and marketing. Then I came to Johannesburg to study. I came here at the end of 98 after I'd matriculated. And like I said, when I got here, I started pursuing acting as well. So my very first role on television was on, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like an educational show. And I did like an insert, you know how they do an insert to explain a particular issue. Right? So that was the very first TV thing I ever did. And then after that, what was kind of significant was my role on Generations. So I used to play a girl called Tammy who was a babysitter. I don't know if you remember time of Sarah Lee, the white woman Sarah Lee, who was yes, I do remember.
HIV positive. I think it was an HIV positive storyline.
Yes.
This young girl was HIV positive, and I think Sarah Lee had adopted her. So I used to be the babysitter next door who used to look after her. So for me that was quite big, and that was a recurring role until I fell pregnant at the age of 21. I started that role in 98 and then fell pregnant at the age of 21, and that saw me being written out because they could not have a girl in a school uniform who was pregnant, and my belly was starting to show. And so that's how I lost that gig. And I lost it at a time when I was reviewing so many things because I was now pregnant in 21. I just finished my diploma, and I, had to weigh my options. Do I pursue television or do I go into the corporate workspace? And obviously what made more sense then was to go into the corporate workspace because that afforded me sustainability and security. And so I went home and had my baby, and I came back with her when she was 3 weeks old to start a new job. And I was in corporate for about 7 years. I was in corporate for about 7 years. And I left corporate in 2007 to pursue entrepreneurship. But part of the reason why I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship was because it would have afforded me the time to really pursue my first love, which was acting. And so that's why I left corporate. Apart from the fact that I started reviewing a lot of things and introspecting on a lot of things about my life, and it just felt like, my daughter was quite young. I wasn't seeing her. I was chasing deadlines. And I just felt absent as a parent. So there was that reason. And there was, of course, the reason that I wanted to pursue and chase my dreams of acting. And in the year 2007 that I resigned and left corporate completely, I remember it was in the end of February. So I started March 2007 without a job. And that same year in August, I had my first lead role as Nomzamo in the sitcom Nomzamo.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And the rest is history, Mandla. I don't know what else to say. So that's me in a nutshell in my journey that's gotten me to where I am. And of course, there's been growth and lessons in the last couple of years as I've entered eventually to my adulthood. I've progressed from just being an actress, but I am a speaker. I MC. I'm also an author. I wrote a book called Unbecoming to Become, which I think we might talk about later on. But I recently wrote a book. I'm writing my second book. I also have dabbled in executive producing. So I own a media company, co-own a media company with Nobuntu Webster called Avat Media. And we focus on content creation. We've been doing a lot of work in the private sector. Last year, we got our first series on Zanzi Magic called Mobile. And we're now dabbling in that space. And we're also in the publishing and distribution space. We've just launched or started a publishing and distribution wing within the Avat Media space. So we're busy with that right now and setting that aspect of the business up. So I'm an entrepreneur as well. I'm a mom of 3 beautiful children. My daughter obviously now is much older than when I was pregnant with. At 20,
yes.
21. She's 20 now, and
wow.
I have 2 boys, 6 and 8 years, and I'm married. And I live somewhere very, very far in the farms of Joburg at some point.
Oh, really?
In my life. Yeah, I'm in Gauteng. I still access Joburg, but I'm in the far south of Gauteng.
Okay.
Somewhere in my life, I think about 5 years ago, just being in the cosmopolitan space was too much for me, and I wanted the hills and the valleys, and I just wanted to. When I look outside, I just see trees, and so I found this place, which is kind of like a ranch estate farm, and that's where we live.
Nice.
And it's very peaceful here. It's very peaceful here.
Nice. I mean, being as busy as you are, and a lot of it requires you. I mean, writing. I'm sure there's a lot of reflection, and now you are also into executive producing. A lot of reflection as well. So I'm sure that piece is doing you very well. But by the way, Mobile was one of my favorite series. When it came out, it was I really enjoyed it. So well done on that one. So yeah, man, wow. I mean, there's so many things that you are doing, and a lot of them kind of like developed over the years. And which one, now that you've got this table full of everything that you are doing, which one now are you focused on the most, and which one do you feel you are shining in the most? Or if you had a choice, you do the most?
I mean, that's such a deep question, because I think it's more than just about what we see or the practicalities of the gift, right? It's about the core of the gift. And in my book, Unbecoming to Become, I actually write about gifts and talents. And I think for me, one of the things that I've come to realize as an individual is, what am I called for in this universe? What am I called for on this earth?
Yes.
And I have come to understand that I'm a healer, and I heal using words. So my healing gift is made manifest in words. My words heal. This is why when I would engage on social media and write captions, and people will keep saying, please, can you motivate, say something, can you put out videos encouraging us? And actually, that was the catalyst for Unbecoming to Become being born, is that people wanted me to write more because they found healing in my words.
Wow.
So I've come to understand that at the core of my being, I'm a healer, and I heal through the talents that God has granted me with, which is performance, which is writing. So my healing gift manifests itself as a performer. It manifests itself as an author, as somebody who writes. In performance, I use words come alive in whatever scene I am dictated or performing. And in my writing, my words come alive in whatever I'm putting down on paper. So my and it's interesting because, I was actually thinking about this, and I thought, when I was on Isibaya for the 8 years that I was on Isabai. The most impact that I made on the show was during the latter end of the show, which was when Phumelele, or Mandla, the character that I was playing, was finding her voice, healing her traumas, and finding her power, finding herself as a woman, right? And I've come to realize that the reason that narrative was so impactful, and also the reason that I was chosen for that narrative, is because it was in alignment to the gift.
Got it.
Right? It was in alignment to the gift. And that is why it made the kind of impact that it made.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't want to box it in. No, I do better when I'm my gift is writing or my favorite. As long as I'm expressing healing, because even as I speak, as long as I'm expressing healing, I'm expressing the core of the gift, then I'm fine.
Wow,
then
that's
I'm fine.
that's such a very deep, because in essence, what you're saying is that the platforms, they give you different ways of expressing. It's the same gift of healing, but different platforms, and they're all coming together. There's this almost like a river of healing that is flowing, coming from different streams. Yeah, wow, that's very interesting. So, you come across, Ayanda, as someone that, since I met you, when I've experienced you, a lot of times, there's this perception that, and I'm not sure if you appreciate this word, but a lot of times celebrities, they come across as very aloof, as very, they live in their own world. But you come across as someone that is very grounded, someone that is that's very humble. And listening to you, you are confirming it over and over again here as well. What anchors you? What made you to be the way that you are from this, in terms of how you view life and how you view your relationship with ordinary people?
Mandla, that is such a difficult question. I'm going to give you an example. I've been in the acting space for some time, and one of the things that I've seen and noticed in it is that often when a good show ends, it is because the people who are in the show, whether it's the actors or somebody or certain people, have become bigger than the show. So when certain actors become bigger than the show, it dilutes the core purpose of what it is that we're doing here. So I'm giving that example to kind of lay a foundation for what I'm about to say. I am not bigger than the purpose as I am. I believe that each of us are called, and I believe that the reason that all of us are here is for a reason. But Mina, as Brenda Ayanda, I'm not bigger than the reason. And that keeps me in check, that I am not bigger than the reason. I think it was Tyler Perry who said, was it Tyler Perry? Yes, it was Tyler Perry who said that you coming into your being and fulfilling your purpose on earth is so important, because there are other people who are dependent on you fulfilling your purpose for them to fulfill theirs. And I think if we understood that we don't exist in silo.
So profound, yeah.
We exist in the universe in its entirety, and each of us are part of a puzzle piece that must come together for this balance in mankind. Then perhaps we will approach life with a lot more humility than sometimes we often find. I think that's the ultimate for me, is understanding that I'm not bigger than the reason. Because you see, as umafungaze ekhaya and somebody who's done well within my family, if I ever thought that I was bigger than the reason, then it means that I will manifest or show up in my family space as somebody who thought they are better or that they are more important. But when you understand that the reason I've been granted the blessing is so that I can take care of the responsibility that is upon me, then you approach it with humility. So yeah, I think that's it. It's understanding that I'm not bigger than the purpose. I really am not.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. You know, it's and I can see how it can actually keep you in check. You know, I think it's that perspective. It gives you like the perspective and almost guardrails to say, okay, you know, where am I going? Am I still, you know, in my lane? So which is really great. So maybe this is a good place to speak about success, because moments of inspiration, we focus on success and we define success in different ways. You know, as people, we define success differently, you know, but I always find that a lot of the guests, they really, you know, ultimately the definition of success, it's actually, you know, it's almost one, looking at it from different perspectives. So Ayanda, how does Ayanda define success? When you say you are a success, because I look at you, Ayanda, and a lot of people look at you, they're like, wow, this woman, this lady is successful, you know. But for you, when you are with your own thoughts, you are with your own self, how do you define success for yourself?
Peace.
Wow.
For me, success is peace. It is the understanding that it doesn't matter what anybody thinks of you, as long as you are content with who you are, and that brings you peace, then you're good. Because in the end, because there is an expectation on us, and we are trying to validate something in us. So for me, success is peace, and it's getting to a place where I am no longer accountable for people's opinions of me, whatever they may be. And I'm no longer pressured by the expectations of people that don't even matter in my life. Because we live in a world that is bombarded with social media and bombarded with people who hide behind handles to make us react in certain ways, right? Cowards who make us, who say all sorts of things to us. And because so and so has said this and so has said that. And you know, I just got to a place in my life where I understood how important peace is in my life. There is nothing as beautiful as contentment. And it doesn't always mean that by being content, you are I don't know, urighty or where you are holy, or it just means that I'm here and I'm accepting that this is where I am. Even though it may not define you, but it's the acceptance and contentment that this is where I am. So for me, success is peace. I never want to be moved by people and things that I'm not invested in emotionally. That is success for me, because my peace of mind and well-being is important. If I cannot show up in a way that is healthy and peaceful for my children, then I don't know what kind of adults I am raising. Right? In my stillness, in my peace, able to introspect. In my stillness and in my peace, I'm able to heal. In my stillness and in my peace, I'm able to hear from the divine. In my stillness and in my peace, I am able to correct certain things. So even the physical move, really to be here in the space where we are now, was to shut off the noise, because the noise was what started driving the narrative about who I was. And I think a lot of people experience that. And it gets us into a place where we are so misaligned with who we are. And when you are able to shut off the noise, you get to a place or space where you're able to align divinely, and that brings us peace. So for me, success is peace. If I'm not departing from a place of peace, then I'm be right, and nothing comes right.
Peace. Wow, that's such simple, but I can hear it. I can really hear it, because as you describe it and as it makes a lot of sense. So we are speaking about the entertainment industry. We're speaking about success in the entertainment industry, and I wanted to speak to someone like yourself about this, because what you've defined now, peace, the grounding, the humility, the being able to understand that you're not bigger than the industry, you're not bigger than the show, it's so key, because we want people who will be able to build careers for years and years and years, and not only just be there for years, but bring their best self, and and really live out their own purposes and their own journeys. What is the state of the entertainment industry in South Africa? So if you look around, and I'm glad that we are now also behind the scenes, and what is the state of the industry, in South Africa as things stand now in 2022?
Oh, I think with everything that there are pits, and there are also highs. The industry is not in its best form, and it hasn't been for a long time. Whether we'll ever get there, I do not know. This is probably one of the few sectors where, and I've said this publicly, where the people who drive the sector, the actors, the performers, feel like the gift is a curse more than it is a blessing. So the gift that is meant to sustain you and allow you to live and make money, and that same gift, which is probably the only thing that is also a curse in some way, because it doesn't do that for you. So we're in an industry where people don't, first of all, the people who are in leadership positions in this industry don't understand how this industry is supposed to work in reference and in comparison to how this industry is run in other countries, or they don't want to. I have come to the conclusion that there is a deliberate effort for leadership to not resolve the issues of regulation in the industry, for the very reason that artists must not have power.
Wow. Sure.
And I have come to the conclusion that in a country like South Africa, if you're going to create people or give a conducive environment for people like a fella Tuka to thrive. Fella was a force, a power. He challenged the government and the leadership in his own country, but he was big. You look at the role of arts during the apartheid regime, the role of artists during the apartheid regime, and you get to understand how much power the voice of the artist has. Now, are we really going to, as a leadership, going to hand over such power to artists who can challenge us, who have a following, who have a voice that people will listen to? We're not going to give that kind of influence. Because if we do allow for that, it means that we can be challenged and taken head on. So what do?
Sure.
We make sure that the status quo remains as is. Let them die poor, so that they continue to beg us for whatever. They continue to beg us for life, for a livelihood, because essentially this is what artists are doing, begging for a livelihood. But I think if we haven't come to understand if we don't understand the kind of influence and power that artists possess, that's why we call them celebrities, right? And that is why even governments abroad, when it's time for election time, they garner support from influential voices.
True.
In this media space, because these are people who have so much influence, but we cannot afford to give them that kind of power, because they will come back and challenge us. So I think we're in a very unfortunate situation as an industry, because there are a lot of challenges that I believe can be resolved, but I think they are deliberately being ignored. The industry is opening up. We're seeing a lot of talent come out, rural township areas. We're seeing new faces, which is really great. However, because the industry is not regulated, there's a lot of frustration within the industry, especially between the old and the young. The industry is not segmented, and so artists are not segmented by category. So in the US and other countries, what you have is you have an A-lister, somebody who's earned to be an A-lister because they've done X amount of productions and movies and whatever. Their resume speaks for itself. In this country, you find somebody who's a legend, who has vast experience, go and stand in a queue with a child who's just come out of after.
Oh gosh.
Vying for the same role. So we could speak about so many things that are frustrating about the industry. But we can also speak, like I say, about the positives. We're seeing a lot more production companies mushrooming. We're seeing, like I say, new talent. And we are seeing the industry open up in the sense of people being given opportunity. But I don't want to lie to you, Mandla, it's a very difficult industry to be in. It's a very difficult industry to be in and to operate in for a number of reasons.
So, yet there are people, within the industry who somehow they've managed to succeed in it. And I think, we celebrate that, that light. So what opportunities exist within the industry? So I'm glad you said that the industry is opening up a little bit as well. So if there's someone now, I've got a niece, I've got a nephew who want to come into this industry, what type of opportunities can they, because all I know from the surface is that you become an actor or you become an actress, and then, maybe I know a little bit of like behind the scenes, like a camera, whatever, or producer. But how does it look like, the opportunities that exist?
Oh, there are vast opportunities in the industry. Knowing what I know now, if I'd known it then, I probably would have come into the industry as a writer and not as an actress. Right?
Okay.
Because I don't want to say that's where I find most joy, but it's an extension of myself that is very organic for me, right? Writing is an organic process for me. So if I'd known better, I would have come in as a writer, and I probably would have dabbled in acting as well. Still fine. But I think, again, what we find is, and especially with Abantu bakithi, because by virtue of just being African, we are, in how even history was passed down, we're storytellers, we are oral people, so it's something that is embedded in our blood, right? We're just a creative people. As an African people, we're creative people. So I think that's the bit that has confused a lot of people, where people think when you come into the TV space, the only thing that's available for you is acting. And so you find people who say, I want to be an actor, not understanding that they are wanting to express a creative gift. but because all that's been presented to them is acting, they think they want to be an actor. But actually, you possess a gift of storytelling and creating. And you can tell stories in different ways, in multiple ways. So you can tell stories behind the camera in how, in the cinematography, in how the pictures and all of this comes together. You can tell a story in what you write. You can tell a story in editing. You can tell a wardrobe is part of storytelling. You know,
so true.
Props is part of storytelling. When you're in a scene and Mobile walks in and Usimo and Mobile are fighting or whatever it is, props needs to understand, okay, what does the space need to look like to reflect the mood of this couple, to reflect, you know what I mean? So everything about the process and the value chain of production is storytelling. It's just about how you then express it. So there's a number of things you can do. I mean, producing is the administration part of it, but in the actual creation space itself, like wardrobe, like makeup is storytelling. You know, is she going to wake up? How is she going to wake up looking today? It's part of telling the story. So there are all these things, other creative aspects within the space that so many people are unaware of. And sometimes you find, so this is what's happened for me, where young people come to me and say, Sand, I want to be an actor. Can you help me with acting? I said, but how do you know that you're an actor? How do you know that you're performing? They said, no, when I do skits at home, and what. And there's a lot more that goes into performance. There's a lot more that goes into performance than just skits, guys. And, you know, it's about being able to use the body. It's about being able to use your voice to portray, project a certain emotion. It's about your eyes. You know, it's about, you know, there's a lot that goes into performance. And often I would then say, let's do this. I'm going to expose you to the value chain. I'm going to expose you to production. And then you can decide, once you've seen all the moving parts of this creation process, you can decide if this is really what you want to do. I've had many young people come back and say to me, yeah, I enjoy editing. Because we shoot all the footage, and then there's like lots of footage, and then somebody has to cut all of that and tell the story in there. That's why sometimes actors will sometimes fight with the editors because they're like, no, but there was a scene that I did, and then this is what we, you know, and then the editor has cut it because he wanted, he's trying to show this kind of emotion, or he's trying to. So I've had many young people come back and say, actually, I didn't realize that I could edit, or I can edit, or I didn't realize that I enjoy sitting in story room more and conceptualizing story and writing story, right? So it's important that young people are exposed to the entire creations process to understand, because in essence, perhaps what you are is not a performer. What you are is a storyteller, but you have not found the space or the vehicle within which you are meant to express your storytelling gift, because you are unaware of what that process looks like. Yeah.
So how, and I'm just wondering now, how do we now expose these young people to some of these things that are happening, you know, behind the scenes, to realize that it's not just about 2 or 3 jobs, but there could be 20, there could be 25 or 30 jobs that you could choose from, you know, besides going to school, because I would imagine just going to school will naturally expose you to the industry. But are there any other informal ways where someone is still trying to dabble and see where they can fit, that people can actually go and learn some of these things?
I mean, the training ground is the production companies where the production themselves are being created. Unfortunately, as production companies, it's such a fast-paced world that nobody's really thinking about mentorship. And I think that's the aspect of the industry that is lacking, where, you know, there's emphasis on mentorship, right? And mentorship that exposes you to what is on the ground so that you can decide for yourself where you fit in. So I think what we need to be doing is creating more and more platforms for young people to be part of the production space. Right now, we are in the middle of shooting Shaga Ilembe.
Yes,
telling that story.
Very exciting.
You know, very exciting. And you know, I mean, the massive resources that have gone into putting that production together, and the you know, the kind of investment that's gone into putting all of this together. It would just be a shame for the sets that have been built and for that process to essentially serve production only. You know, we've been in talks about how do we get Omaspala and those who have arts and culture departments where we can get young people to come and see the making of Ushaga Ilembe and everything that goes on behind the scenes, because to waste that, and it's not a waste, but to just serve production only would just be such a shame and such a pity. And so I think it really is about being able to create the platforms, and it's also about the collaboration between government entities, whether Omaspale and the private sector, right? Because there are a lot of programs on the ground with arts and culture that they are doing, but they're so far removed from the reality of what is actually going on in this private space, in the production space. And it's also about that collaboration. So how do production companies and Omaspala talk to, because like I say, I think the nature of production itself is so fast paced that they don't have the time. They we just really don't have the time for any kind of mentorship. So it is up to people like Omaspal and government who are on the ground, where, you know, we know there's a theater group somewhere in Soshanguve. We know there's a theater group somewhere in Wamashu. How do we bus those people to a production a space where they can get to experience and see how this engine is put together?
Amazing. I think continue pushing, you know, hopefully there will be some sort of a breakthrough there, because I really think people need to be exposed. But we can only do what we can do here, you know, on this show. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how does someone really identify, you know, or realize that, you know what, I've got a gift that needs to be shared within this space called, you know, entertainment industry at large, but let's say now, you know, acting and, you know, and that type of love, where, how does someone realize? Are the profiles, is there a particular individual? Like, how do you wake up one day and say, you know what? And how do we actually save a lot of people who maybe they don't have the talent, but I know people have been pushing for 20, 30 years, and now they even have white hair trying to get into the industry, but they actually do not have the talent, or even maybe the kind of personality to get into it.
I think the why is important. It's the why you're doing it that is important. And again, I'm going to use a different example to try and answer this question. So I said to you, at the core of who I am and the gift that I have is healing. And last year I went through therapy. And I remember my therapist saying to me, when we did Mobile, and I was sharing with her what Mobile is about, and and then she said to me, actually it was after the Mobile one, it was Wounds, which I shot in Cape Town, and then I told her the story about Wounds, and Wounds was also the narrative was GBV and toxic masculinity women oppression in the nursing fraternity, in the medical space. And then she said to me, when are you going to get to a place where that does not form part of your identity, and you remove Ayanda from that space of talking about GBV or getting engaged in such projects? And I felt quite offended. And I didn't understand. At the time, I didn't understand what offended me. And then I realized, no, man, what is offending me is that this person probably thinks that this is a brand. It's part of my brand. It's not part of my brand. It's part of who I am. I do it because it's part of who I am, right? And so because at some point I was battling with, okay, do I just stop talking about social ills in this country? Do I stop advocating for equality? What do I do? Because then I thought, is this a facade? And I was like, no, actually, it's not a facade. It is who I am. And I remember taking some time off and thinking, I'm not going to engage a space where it's, we're talking about GBV or we're talking about women's rights and empowerment. I'm not going to. But to not be able to talk about and engage about it it was punishment for me.
Yeah.
And I realized it's because I'm not separate from the gift. I'm not separate from it. So I think the why is important in answering that question is to why do we also we're in a space where everybody wants to be on TV. Everybody wants to act because they think it brings them a certain kind, and this is just me thinking out loud. I think a lot of people think it will give them the kind of validation and approval that they need from the world to appear as important because you're on television. So sometimes I question why people seek to be in front of the camera. Is it real? Or is it part of fulfilling something else? And I think if we're able to answer the why for ourselves, then we would approach it with a little bit more wisdom, because I think, I just think there are a lot of people who are not doing it for authentic reasons. And then you also find, Mandla, kunabantu who say to you, I want to be an actor, I want to perform, but akafuni went to theater, went to TV pay. So what is that about?
Yeah, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
What is that about? You know what I mean? Because there are people, beautiful performers that nobody knows of, that I've met in this walk of life, who are just doing township theater, who really are doing it for the love of the arts. It's just that they have not been exposed to these platforms where they are now spotted for television. But there are people who really love acting and they do it and then you have people who just say, nah, I love acting. But so it's a theater or you understand? So I think it's important to understand and question the why.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? If your answer to the why is because without this thing, I will not be able to breathe.
Wow.
I will not be able to live. Without this thing, now I will not be able to breathe. I will not be able to live. Because this is the why I had to answer for me when I said my therapist asked me this question. I thought, no, without me speaking out, advocating, calling it out, I'm not able to breathe, I'm not able to live, because it's at the core of my calling and my purpose. So if you say you're a performer, you're an artist, without it, akufanele ukwazi ukuphila, which means uzophuma uye theater where nobody sees, where there's no audience. But you must do it because this thing is in you and iyakuhlupha. So if then you are not an artist. Forget about it.
Sure. Wow, I really, really love that, because one of the things that you've set up on purpose on this show, on Moments of Inspiration, was that purpose is actually you. I mean, that was one of the actual definitions I could find. Ukuthi, when you are thinking about purpose, it's you. You are purpose, and purpose is you. So you and purpose are one, you know? So, and I hear what you're saying, Ukuthi, it's what you breathe, it's how you live, and there's a pull, right? So, and you're actually right, because if you cannot even be pulled towards performing, and you're waiting for the opportunity, and ufuna nama veteran and try to get jobs that actually should go to veterans, it means that there's something wrong, because they're just looking for the fame, right? Yeah. Wow, love it. So Ayanda, before we close and maybe talk a little bit about your book, let's help a parent, let's help a young person that wants to pursue a career. Let's assume that they really have it in them. They've got the gift, they've got the pull, they've got all the tools that can make them to be a great, entertainer. How do the parents and the kids, I guess I can say kids now because I'm over 40, right? How do they relate? How do they relate? That 18-year-old or 17-year-old that is trying to choose a career, and they really want to go to and do this and get into this industry, and the parent that is saying, you are not going there because you will not make a living, you're going to get into drugs, you're not going to have a job, and all of that. How do we bring these two together? How do we reconcile them?
I'm a parent as well, and I'm a parent to a 20-year-old, and she's going into the occupational, so I'm going to make it very personal so that you understand where I'm coming from. She's going into the occupational therapy space, and sounded all good. And then she said to me, but Mama, if for whatever reason I don't end up doing occupational therapy, maybe I'll do nursing. And I remember thinking, what? So about nursing? I didn't put you through private schooling so you could become a nurse. And that's the truth, and I had to, I said it, and I could see how disappointed she was that I'd said that. Even though I know that my daughter, her character, her personality requires that she works with people, and especially children, because she has a gift for nurturing children. Even though I know that as a parent, but there was a thing about me, but it's a bit, no, not in nursing, private schooling all these years, and then when it's over in nursing, no, and also I have aunts who are nurses, and I understand how difficult the working conditions are, right? But also I said to her, whatever you choose to do, you need to understand where the world is going, how the world is moving, where we're moving to, the direction we're moving. We don't want to create more employable people, but want to create people who can employ themselves, because this is where the world is moving. So whatever you choose to do, it must be in a space where you can make a living out of it without being employed, so you can be an entrepreneur. You could commercialize the gift without necessarily depending on a big corporate employee.
True.
But I had to sit down and say to myself, but why did I react in the way that I reacted? And I realized, it was my own prejudices about nursing that I had, and that I was now imposing on the child. Right? And I had to be very honest about that conversation with myself. That no, and it was prejudice. It was because of your experience with nursing. It was because maybe it didn't fit the kind of profile that you would want for your child, and I'm being completely honest, right? But I also know that it is a space in which she would thrive because she is naturally that. So for me, I think for parents, it's about educating ourselves so that we are able to guide our children. So how do I educate myself as a parent about the acting industry to understand what it really is about, so that I can have a constructive conversation with my child? Because in as much as they may know more, I think they also need the guidance and wisdom of parents or somebody who's an adult. So if my child said, Mama, I want to be a makeup artist on a production set. How do I then say to my child, okay, Mtanam, that's all good and well, and she's a super makeup artist, and she would really nail this, and she's happy doing this, but how do I support it in a way that is going to be sustainable for her? So let's have the entrepreneurship conversation. You want to be a makeup artist, how can we make that this is, because I must understand what is worrying me. Am I being worried about the fact that it may not be sustainable? And if that's the case, then let's address that. Let's work together. How do we then address that? Do I say to her, Mtanami, rather register a business, and then let me understand, how does this system work? How does the production space work? Oh, okay, I see. They have different makeup artists, so you'll not always be employed all the time, but you can freelance. Oh, there's also the commercial space, the ad space.
Yes.
Oh, so there's that as well. So if you understand, okay, so maybe let's register a business so that you become your own business and you offer the service. And maybe then what you can do is you then start teaching makeup artists makeuping to other people. You start teaching the skill to other people, so you duplicate yourself, so that as a business you engage with the production side as a business and not as an individual. And that can address the sustainability bit, because also then what you can do is, this one can be on, your makeup artist can be on the estate, the other makeup artist can be doing Ushaga Lembe, your other makeup artist can be doing Isitingo, your other one Rhythm City, your other one Isibai. But what you are saying is, let's look at this in its entirety.
True.
How can we create more opportunities, that sustainability for you? So I think for parents, it's about having an open and honest conversations about what your actual reservations are. And then addressing those. If there are ways of addressing the reservations, then addressing the reservations. Because there are children who are sincerely, truly, honestly gifted. And those children, if we don't allow them to be on the platform that allows them to thrive, we are really just calling depression upon them. Because when I'm unable to express myself sincerely and authentically as who I am and what I'm called to do, and I'm not living an authentic life of who I am. I'm an accountant, but actually I just want to perform. I'm an accountant, but actually I just want to be a director. Even like I feel like I'm being suffocated because it's not what I want to do. It's not going to work. So I think it's about researching, understanding, and then for us to address what our reservations are, and then to bring the experience and the wisdom, and to ask. Let's ask people who know. Let's ask people who are in the space who know. Just ask, and then talk through it with your children and how you're going to support them. So, okay, Nkanami, so it might not work in Etse. Is there anything else that can sustain this thing? You can do it, but what else can sustain you if things don't work? Then you address the reservation.
Exactly. No, I think we need to get to that level where we really help our kids, because I'm also a parent, and I'm thinking a lot. My kids are still young, but I'm thinking a lot about what happens, when they want to choose a career. How am I going to react? And I think it's important for the kids to be what they need to be. Otherwise, they're going to be resentful as well, and your relationship might even be ruined. On the surface, it might be fine, but there could be deeper issues that the kids have because of, those decisions that you didn't help them, as you say, to make. So thank you so much. I really love that. So as we close, you have written a book, and I don't want us to close without speaking a little bit about that. I know we don't have a lot of time. What is it about? Because it's really deep. It's not the usual, okay, it's just a book, it's fun, but there's a lot in there. How did it come about? And moreover, how can people actually get hold of the book?
Unbecoming to become, as the title says, is really encompassed in a quote that says, perhaps the journey is not about becoming anything, but perhaps the journey is about unbecoming everything that we've ever been taught so that we can become who we truly were meant to be. The subtext of Unbecoming to Become is my journey back to self. So when I started writing the book, I wrote the book at a place where I was really just deeply sad. And in my introspection and meditation and prayer, the understanding or coming to the realization that I was sad because I'd lost so much of myself. I could no longer identify with Ayanda. I didn't know who Ayanda was. My dreams felt buried. I felt buried. I felt like my identity had been buried. And of course, I go in depth into the how I found myself at that place. But it really is about the journey of going back to the beginning, because the truth is that the revelation of who we are, the revelation of who we are at core, is at the genesis of our life, because that is when we are born, we filter authentically, we filter sincerely. We don't filter with anything or any of the experiences that have now made us to be who we are in our adult lives. So the journey was about going back to the beginning and identifying the codes that as a woman I wore, that I put on myself, because the belief is that when I come into this world as an authentic, beautiful being with my own beautiful coat made of pearls and rubies and diamonds and platinum and whatever else. But by the time I get to the age of 6 or 7, I'm wearing another coat on top of my coat, which is now covering my coat, because I've grown up in a family where I have 2 brothers. And of the 2 brothers, I am treated as less than, whether it's through domestication, whether it's through being made to understand that you will not carry the family surname, they will carry the family surname, so they are more important. And then by the time I'm in my teenage years, I'm beginning to understand things about God and who God is. And in my understanding of God, I get to hear and know, and it is revealed to me that God is a man. So how does this affect me psychologically when I'm told that I'm made in the image and the likeness of God, but I am separate from God and I don't look like God? My image does not reflect God because I'm a woman. How does that psychologically affect me as a young girl growing up in understanding my value and my worth in the world? Let's not even talk about understanding my worth in divinity, just showing up in the world, because uNkulunkulu indoda. What does that mean for a young girl? And then I'm introduced to the world of dating, and then I'm pitted against other girls. I grew up in the township. In the township, we're told ukuthi indoda akusiyo yakho wedwa, indoda uyoyishare, and amadoda have privilege. So again, my worth and self-esteem questioned. And then I go into a space of whether it's corporate or into the working space and working environment, and I see and I get to understand that men possess more power in the corporate space, and that when I show up in my being and in my authentic self as a female and how I deal with things, I am told that I'm emotional, I am told that I'm not practical, that I'm, so even my ubumina as umuntu wesifazane and how I manifest is questioned. And so, this goes on and on and on. You are wearing the coats, whether it's in dating someone who doesn't treat you right, whether it's been being molested or raped as a young girl. All of those are coats that we put on, and what the world has made us to define ourselves as. So my journey of going back to self was about identifying what through my journey were those coats, and then addressing them because now I'm an adult. I can see them for what they are, and I can address them, and I can rewrite that narrative for myself. So unbecoming is exactly that journey back to self, so that you can find your true self. So ngahamba ngawushugula all the codes, so that this beautiful coat that I was born with, my pearls and my rubies, could reflect, and I walk through life unapologetically as the person that I was born as. It is a continuous journey of becoming and redefining ourselves, because we're always going to be facing hurdles along the way. but really for me, it was a journey of healing and a journey of return to love and the divine order that was set in place for me and disrupted by the world and society, its expectations, its socialization, its conditioning, in all areas, whether economic, whether political, whether religious, whether culture, whether family tradition. I wanted to address the things that were oppressing me and oppressing the true, authentic Ayanda. And it is a journey that many women share. And it's also a journey that I think is important for men to understand and see, because I think sometimes, and I say this because we're going into the space of, we're in the space of Women's Month, and I'm glad that on the 9th where I'm speaking, there's going to be men as well. But I think sometimes we have these conversations, and part of why we're clashing is because we're having the conversations in silos, and then I walk out of a room where I've been with women, I've been told certain things, and certain things have been corrected, and narratives have been corrected. I go home, because now I have an expectation of this man who hasn't walked the journey with me. So I think we need to be sensitive to understanding that the journey of healing must be walked together, because in as much as there are things that have oppressed women, privilege has also broken men.
True. So true.
So in essence, that is what the book is about.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like it's a full read, you know, in helping us to really understand. And I would assume that, you know, I don't know how many years is it been 2 years now that you've released the book?
3.
3 years.
It will be 3 years in September, yeah.
3 years, yeah. So in the 3 years, I'm sure there's been a lot of men as well that have benefited from reading the book, right?
Certainly. And I think how I actually saw the benefits was when my husband read the book.
Sure.
And he sat me down after he read the book. And he said to me, I knew you were strong, but I didn't know that you were this strong. And he thanked me for the offering. And then he said to me, I could not have chosen a better woman to raise my children.
Wow.
But I think what it did, because I could also see a shift in him, a shift in the way that he engaged issues around women, because it allowed him the opportunity to walk in my shoes. And that's the beautiful thing about books, is that you take your time.
So important, yeah.
Yeah, you take your time.
True.
So you take your time with it and you digest.
True.
And you can, it's not like a conversation when people talk at you.
Yeah,
you can read a page and then we value and say, okay, I want to think about this. And that's the beautiful thing about books. So when I saw what the impact that it had on him and how he viewed women, I was like, and again, like you say, the feedback from men who've read the book has just been so amazing. Because, you know, men will say to me, my wife doesn't know. I understand the frustration that she was trying to articulate, but I'm feeling frustration and I'm not getting what she's trying to say, because it's layered. And so you need somebody to unpack it. Yeah. And men have found appreciation in that it's being unpacked. And now I understand better.
Sure. Wow. That's great. So how do people get hold of this book? Where is it sold at the moment?
It's sold at the moment. We are at Exclusive Books and Bargain Books and on Takealot. Your major bookstores can also get it directly from me if you DM me, and then I'll get the office to get in touch with you, and the book will be delivered to you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Ayanda, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. I personally have really, learned a lot. I know we speak about the entertainment industry, but I learned a lot about life. I guess that's life. One area kind of like opens up other areas as well. And I really appreciate your time, and really appreciate the kind of person that you are, and we say thank you so much. much and all the best. I know that you're doing a lot of speaking and talking. We haven't had time to really go into that, but I am sure, the two people that do not follow you yet on social media, they can please follow you on social media. And I know you post a lot about where you're talking, what you're doing. I'm sure people will be able to follow you. So I appreciate it. And thank you so much for spending this hour with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to share and open up. And whatever people find and pick from this conversation, I hope that it will help them become better people and make better choices.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you for all the listeners and viewers for joining us today on Moments of Inspiration. God bless you. Thank you so much for your support.